Right, welcome everybody. My name is Grant Beavers. I'm Senior Education Advisor at OpenLearning. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening to where you might be joining us for this inaugural OpenLearning Micro-credentials Symposium for 2020. Very strange year and I think many of us have attended many events this way throughout the year. We're using a new platform here this year. We'd love to get your feedback on it at the end as well as we work our way through. But it's wonderful to have you on board and hopefully you're going to enjoy today. We've got a wonderful array of speakers, a number of very interesting topics in some panels and hoping that you'll play a role in some of that as the day goes on as well. With me on the screen is Cherie Diaz, Managing Director of OpenLearning, based out of Sydney. I'm based out of Brisbane, by the way. And Cherie will do the formal welcome in just a moment. But what I want to do is just do a little bit of housekeeping with you so that you understand a little bit more about the platform, how to get around, how to find your way to the different events and so forth. So bear with me, I'm just going to share my screen. Cherie, just let me know when you can see that.
Yep, all good.
Great. Okay, so basically we're in, if you like, the on the main stage at the moment. Now, sessions today are going to take place in two different places. This is a linear event, so each particular session follows each other throughout the day. We do not have breakout sessions or multiple sessions occurring at the one time. So what you'll find is that the keynote address, which will follow Cherie, as well as our single presenter presentations that'll happen during the day, will all take place on the main stage. And then our panel sessions will naturally take place in the panel sessions area throughout the day. And we've got 4 of those panel sessions sprinkled throughout the day from this morning through to this afternoon. So if you are familiar with the login page that you came in on, there was an agenda there. The agenda outlines the order in which each of those particular sessions are going to occur. To get around, as I said, you can move between those points on the left-hand side. You can see main stage panel sessions. I'd also like to get you to take the opportunity throughout the day to hop into the EdTech exhibitors area. You can see the link on the left-hand side there. At some stage during the day, we've got a number of exhibitors who have joined us today. They've given up their time to speak to you about their solutions. They are all partners of OpenLearning. They would love to have a chat with you about what they're doing and the part that they play in the micro-credentials ecosystem. They have some downloads that you can get access to. You can request a virtual meeting with them as well. You can do a live session with them. And you can access some other material about their offerings and so forth. So please take the time, if you do get a chance during the day, to hop into the exhibitor space and certainly visit some of those exhibitors. Without further, the last thing I'll say on the next slide here, communications-wise for the day, we've got a chat window. We've got chat windows in each of the different sessions as well. You'll find that you can change the different chat areas by using the arrow up on the top left-hand side, top right-hand side, I should say. And then you can type your messages in the bottom. You can use emojis and so forth in that area as well as you go through. So without further ado, I will pass you back to now Cherie and get her to do the formal welcomes for the day. Over to you, Cherie.
Great, thanks, Grant. I'm just going to share my screen, everyone, so please bear with me for a second. Awesome. So, Grant, can you just confirm you can see my slides, please?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, I'll echo Grant's welcome and good morning or afternoon and evening for everyone that's joining from elsewhere. As we commence today's proceeding, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm hosting the symposium from the lands of the Gadigal of the Eora Nation. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all work today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this symposium. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. Firstly, I'd like to commence by expressing my gratitude for your involvement in OpenLearning's first Micro-credential Symposium. Today's event has been made possible through the contribution of our keynote speaker, 2 individual speakers, 13 panelists, 4 moderators, 6 exhibitors, and over 500 attendees, and just a little bit of coordination work by the partnerships team at OpenLearning. So thank you. For those that aren't as familiar with OpenLearning, we exist to increase access to higher quality education. This purpose is what drives the OpenLearning team and our lifelong learning platform in supporting more than 143 education partners in delivering transformative, accredited and non-accredited learning experiences to more than 2.6 million learners. Internally, we're guided by our behaviours, embracing people from all walks of life, seeing the best in each other, driven by a sense of responsibility, realising possibilities in a chaotic world, and enjoying the moment. With the Australian Qualifications Framework review finalised at the end of 2019, the definition of a micro-credential being a certification of assessed learning that is additional, alternative, complementary to, or a component part of a formal qualification was an important step forward for the Australian education sector. However, there remained ongoing questions which we've roughly grouped as: what are others doing with micro-credentials? How does a micro-credential from one provider compare in quality and structure from another? Is it really just a case of unbundling? What does employers and industry need from micro-credentials? What skills and areas of knowledge are most in need? What are learners looking for out of micro-credentials? Who are they? And are they just for postgraduate and working professionals? And lastly, how can micro-credentials strengthen the connection between education providers and industry? With this in mind, earlier this year, Adam Bremo, co-founder and group CEO of OpenLearning, and I set ourselves a challenge to create a micro-credential framework that leveraged the work undertaken as part of the Australian Qualifications Framework review and research by leaders in micro-credentials, such as our keynote speaker, Emeritus Professor Beverly Oliver, a framework that was designed for lifelong learners who throughout their life will most likely engage in a mix of professional learning, vocational, and higher education. That recognise that learners, employers and industry and education providers are all key stakeholders in realising the potential of micro-credentials. One that established definitions and quality assurance mechanisms and focused on a specific region first, that being Australia. In July, we released the OpenCreds framework after a 4-month consultation process with more than 300 individuals and organisations. As of today, there are 27 OpenCreds available, with a further 24 in development by 8 education providers. I'm pleased to say they represent a broad range of professional learning, vocational and higher education and topics. We view the launch of the OpenCreds framework as just the beginning of our ongoing dialogue with learners, industry and education providers, which leads us to today. When putting together today's agenda, we considered the common themes that arise in conversation with education providers and industry, overlaid with the key stakeholders mentioned earlier. The end result, we hope, is that today you will have the opportunity to engage in this cross-sector dialogue, to gain insights and to connect. On that note, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Beverly Oliver. Beverly is the Principal Consultant at EduBrief, the Principal Fellow of the Higher Education Academy, an Australian National Teaching Fellow, Non-Executive Director at OpenLearning, EduGrowth, and the International Council on Badges and Credentials. Beverly was formerly the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Education at Deakin University and is the founder and editor of the Journal of Teaching and Learning for Graduate Employability. Her leadership has been recognised through 2 national citations for her outstanding contributions to student learning and in 2017, she was awarded Deakin University's highest honour, the title of Alfred Deakin Professor, for her outstanding and sustained contribution to conceptualising the strategic enhancement of courses in the digital economy and furthering Deakin's research and scholarship in the field of higher education. I'm not sure if Beverly would endorse me saying this. However, I'm sure that those of you familiar with her research and work on micro-credentials would consider her publications required reading. Given the momentum that micro-credentials have continued to gain in 2020, Beverly's presentation this morning will focus on thriving and surviving with micro-credentials, rethinking the value proposition. I'll now hand over to Beverly and ask that, in order to access Beverly's presentation, you return to the main stage and follow the buttons on the left-hand side. Thank you.
Thanks, Cherie. And just a reminder, folks, that each of these sessions are in their own different space, and that if you return to the main stage, you will see a link to the keynote presentation. And if you click the Join Now button next to that, you'll be taken into Beverly's, and we'll get underway with Beverly very, very shortly. We'll see you there soon. Bye.